And welcome to another installment of how to use Lightroom and Photoshop and all that good stuff. So today what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you how to change the colors. So just this is available or this color is available. Um, I have several photos in through here that will go through, and then I've also got a couple of your photos and some of the photos that you have uploaded and posted, and so I'm going to use some of these files as examples. So I'm going to walk you through this. It might take a couple of minutes, but I want you to have a pretty good understanding of how all of this works. So for starters, like here's eventually what we're going to be doing, something like this. And so what you have is one color that shows up and the rest of it doesn't. So how exactly do we do this? So we're going to start with our image. Now, look, here's the thing. When you start, I still want you to edit your photo. So don't just go into it and change the colors. So you've got all of this area over here. And so sometimes what you got to do is if sometimes we get these pictures that are really like yellowish, right? Because of the lights in your house. So the temperature is always really good to move around. A lot of times you may end up going in this side a little bit just to get rid of some of the yellows. So I'm going to edit this photo a little bit, lighten it a little, and then touch up these just a little bit. And so you can kind of figure out what looks best, what doesn't, and so on. If you want to add a little contrast, that's always good, but it's up to you what you end up doing. Vibrance, again, don't push the vibrance too much. Just make it somewhat subtle so it doesn't pop too much. Then we get into this area, this HSL, which is hue, saturation, and luminance. We don't want to get into the color because that changes the colors of everything, so we just want to do this. So we click on the saturation. Don't click on the hue because that's just working on the colors. I want the saturation. So what I want is this one to stand out. So I'm gonna start here and I'm gonna get rid of the orange. And so it takes all the orange out of the picture. Then it takes all the yellows out. Then it takes the greens out of the picture. Then it takes the aquas out. Then the blues. And then the purples. And then the magentas. Now be careful with some of these because as you can see, if I take this out, then I start losing this edge here. And we don't want that. So you want to make sure you still have the right amount of color. So this orange one in the background, well, I can't get rid of that, so I have to leave that here. So based off of that, now I've got to go up here, and this is our adjustments brush. So I'm going to click on this adjustments brush, and we'll use some of these. Now sometimes if I want to lighten up an area, maybe a part's a little bit too dark or too light, then I can go in here and then lighten an area up. Okay, I'm going to go Command Z. So I want my exposure to still stay at 0. I want to just use my desaturation. So I'm going to go all the way down to -100. Now brush size, I can change the size of it larger or smaller. And you can either use the brackets right next to the letter P on your keyboard. You can go up or down. You can scroll using your mouse, and that sometimes helps. So I'm going to go a little bit bigger here, and you can see what I'm doing. And so now I'm getting rid of that extra color. And so now the only thing that shows up is that one egg. Now, let's say I don't want that. Let's say I want the green egg. So I'm going to move this one up. I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to pull this one up a little bit more and get rid of this. So now what I have available is just this green right there. So that's one thing that you can do. I'm going to show you just a couple other photos. So here's my shot of color here. Okay, and you can tell like some of these are going to work pretty well. Some of them are not. This one we'll try getting rid of some of the other colors. So just this green shows up. So we want to get rid of all the extra colors. And be careful that you don't, this obviously looks better without the yellow, but be careful that I'm not taking too much yellow out of the leaves. Okay, so sometimes it doesn't work. So I'm going to get rid of this and that. And then I might have to boost this color a little bit, maybe boost that a little bit. And again, be very careful because as I add some of this yellow in, look what happens to the whole picture. So then we have something here. It doesn't always work with Lightroom. Sometimes the fixes are really good, sometimes they aren't. With some of these, let's say if I want this one available. Again, maybe you want to edit it a little bit, just to touch it up a little, lighten it. Okay, and then when I go in, then I can get rid of some of these other parts. Now be careful if you don't want to get rid of certain colors in here. And so you can kind of see the process of how this goes. And again, if I get rid of that orange, then I lose this area here. So if I just want one section, again, I can just go back into here, grab the saturation, take it down to negative 100, and then I can draw over this area, I can draw over this area, and then this is the only one in color. But you see the difference, like if the whole thing is in color, this would pop out a lot more, so it would be consistent. But with this white area here, it doesn't really do this picture very much good. So I'm going to go back to before we changed any of this. So here's my history window, right? So then I can change all of my edits to back to where they were when they were good. If I want to go back to the original, then I have that. So I'm here for now. I'm going to show you this picture, okay? Now, I'm going to start by changing some of the color edits. So I just want this one to show up instead of all of those. So I hide that one for now. What I want to do is, so I want this red to pop out more. So I'm going to get rid of some of these other colors. Now, be careful, right? Because as I get rid of the green, then I lose this piece, and I lose this piece. So you have to kind of be careful about which ones you're selecting. And there's going to be some pictures that work really well with this, some that don't. If I really want to keep those colors in the picture, right, the red and the green, then I might just have to use the eraser to get rid of all of that area over there. Now, this is an unedited photo so far, so I want this to pop out some more. Okay, so I'll come back to that. But in the meantime, I want to go into, whoops, go back into color. Change this area, so I want to desaturate everything else in the picture besides this portion right in the front. Okay, so everything is black and white except for this. Now, some of you might be looking at that thinking, hey, that looks great just as is. But what I want to do is I want this to, the whole picture to look better. Yeah, it looks fine because you can see the reds, but I want to lighten it a little bit. And if you lighten it, the reds are going to pop out more. I mean, you can already tell how the red stands out more. If I want to add a little contrast, I could. And then I'm just going to go in here, oops, and touch these up a little bit more, just to clean it up. So I want my whites whiter and my darks a little bit darker. Okay, so I've got the shadows. I'm gonna move the whites. There we go. And so now I've got something like this that I think looks a lot better. And then I'm going to go in here into effects and add just a little bit of a vignette around the side so the focus goes into this a little bit more. Now, as I was doing that, let's see if I can go back to, so here are all my exposures, right? So this is before, this is after I've made all my edits. Here's before I made all my edits. Okay, so hopefully you can tell the difference between that and that. Okay, so if I go all the way back to the beginning, that's what I had. And then I go into here, so I get rid of all of the color. Okay, better. And then there, now your picture pops a lot more. And then this, your whole focus goes to right there, which I think looks a lot better. So those are a couple of things that you can do with this project, right? So there's kind of some fun ones here. This one's a really good one. Okay, so here's my, I want this to stand out a lot more. So again, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. But what I want to start with is just some basic edits to clean up the photo just a little bit more. Okay, and maybe I have to lighten it just a hair so the brights pop out a little bit more. Go into my saturation or vibrance just a little bit. Don't get crazy with it because that looks terrible. So just a subtle little hint of the vibrance. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of all of these. So again, I'm in the HSL saturation and I'm removing all of these colors. So I'm getting rid of the aqua, the blue. You see what happens when I get rid of that blue, the purple, and then right down here. So all that's left is just my green here. Now as you look around the picture, there's a little bit of green here. So again, you know how to do that. We go in here, change the saturation to 100%, and then get rid of it. Now I'm going to make this smaller. Clean it up, and then I'm going to go even a little bit smaller right through here to touch up the edges. So there we go. And so now I'm about done with that. And so with just your eyes, you're looking at it, somebody to walk up and be like, oh wow, that's cool. So now you know how to do all of that in Lightroom. Okay, so there's a bunch of different ways to touch up photos. If you want to lighten up this area, right, change this part back to saturation of 0. And then I'm going to boost this exposure just a little bit, make this bigger. And then you can see how I'm just slowly lightening it just a hair. So that's how it works. I can move it down here, I can move it up here, I can move it over here. So this is what we're working on now. Okay, so if we look at some of these pictures, you get the idea. If I want all of those, I can go in, hide some of these other ones. Now some of these pictures aren't going to work as well, right? Because when I get rid of that, it's not going to look so good. If I get rid of this, it's not going to look so good. So then we have to take it into Photoshop. And that's our next thing that we're going to be doing. So anyway, for now, this is where we're at. This is how you work in Lightroom. So it's super cool. It's really entertaining and fun to do these kind of edits to some of these photos. I've got a lot of photos that I do where I just do a little color shot and shot of color basically. And so you get imagery to pop a lot more. And so it's pretty easy in Lightroom to do this. Sometimes it goes really quickly. In Photoshop, it's either easier or a lot harder depending on the picture. So anyway, that's what we have. Reach out if you have any questions on this. And if you don't have Lightroom, then you're going to move right into Photoshop to do all of this. So that's our next tutorial. So thank you for listening, and I hope this was helpful for you.